Hello world and welcome back to another episode of Ars Nouveau, where today we're going to be covering all things familiar. Now we're going to be covering just things in the base vanilla Ars Nouveau mod and not the elemental stuff just yet. But without further ado, let's crack straight into it. First off, as you see, we've sort of covered these a little bit before. We have 6 different charms that we're going to be going with first. Now, the charms aren't going to be the familiars themselves. However, it is going to be a way of using all of these different entities slash mobs or slash whatever you want to call them in very specific ways. Each of these different charms is going to give your quote-unquote familiar a different sort of ability. However, it's not the familiar itself, and I'll differentiate the two in a second. So first off, we're going to cover how we get each of these charms, and then we're going to go over how to use it. So starting off with the Starbuncle. In order to create the Starbuncle charm, you're first going to need Starbuncle shards, and for that you're going to need to find a Starbuncle. A Starbuncle you're most likely going to find inside an Archwood forest, but you can pretty much find them in any foresty area. And then when you find them in the world, all you have to do is throw down a golden nugget on the floor, and eventually it will find it or pick it up and it will disappear. This will give you some shards, as you can see here. It doesn't always give you one, sometimes it gives you more. And in order to turn that into a shard, you simply need your enchanting apparatus and 4 gold around the side, and then when you right click the shard into the apparatus, it'll do the craft and give you your Starbuncle charm. Next up we have the Whirlisprig. The Whirlisprig is going to be done in a very similar way to the Starbuncle. Now the Whirlisprig again is probably most likely going to be found in an Archwood forest. However, again, any wooded area will suffice. Now in order to, once you find a Whirlisprig, you are going to have to grow a tree nearby it in order for it to turn into shards, as you see here. So we place that down really quick. After a couple of seconds, it will turn into a shard. Very similarly, you have to get yourselves an enchanting apparatus, fill it with all these different items you see here, and then it will give you the Whirlisprig charm. The next guy is the Drygmy charm. The Drygmy you are going to find again in more foresty type areas, and you'll mostly find these fellas nearby any sorts of animals. Now these are a little bit rarer to find, but trust me, they do go around in the world, and you will spawn, you will get these guys by giving them a Wildenhorn. Now you can either, I think you just have to drop it on the floor. There you go, drop it on the floor. After a few seconds, it will do a little dance and turn into some more Drygmy shards. You then fill it with all of these items. Now I believe the bottom can be multiple different types of seeds, as well as the fish on top can be any type of fish inside an apparatus like this, and it will give you what you need. Now the last type of charm you can get with real entities is first you are going to need a witch. As well as that, you are going to need to get a spell. This spell is going to be the Dispel spell, would you believe. Now if I get the book that actually has it installed, if I have on here, we have Dispel, which is literally just a projectile and the Dispel thing. Then all you have to do is with a witch, you have to take it down to half health. So we get this guy in here and let's take him down to half health. You can see that he is now at 18. Now we just need to Dispel him and he'll turn into some Wixie shards. The Wixies then need to be put inside of another apparatus with these items here, and it will turn us into the Wixie charm. Now the next type of charm is the Bookwyrm charm. However, this has currently been removed for rework inside of 1.19, but just to show you guys how it works, because it is in other versions, I'm going to quickly show how it works in 1.16. Now welcome guys to 1.16, where this is how the Bookwyrm works. All it literally is with the apparatus, you just take 4 source gems and 4 pieces of iron and an egg in an enchanting apparatus, and it will make you your Bookwyrm charm. But as I say, this is disabled inside of 1.19.2. Now the very last one, which is brand new to 1.19, is the Amethyst Golem charm. For this, you're going to first need a ritual brazier. This is made with an arcane pedestal, 3 pieces of gold and a source gem block, and it's just made in a simple crafting table. As well as this, you are going to need a tablet of awakening made with all 4 types of archwood saplings, 4 source gems, and any type of flourishing archwood log. This is made simply in a workbench and will give you the tablet. And now in order for it to work, you'll first just need to place the brazier down and near any type of budding amethyst. Then you simply right click your tablet of awakening. It will use it up. It will say awaiting activation. You just right click on it with an empty hand. It will start doing this craft and it will turn this budding amethyst into our amethyst golem. Now as you can see, this doesn't turn into the charm. It turns directly into the guy over here. However, all you can do is simply kill him or dispel him and it will turn into your charm. Now, before we go into how we actually use each of these different charms to do different sorts of automation, we are first going to go over the actual familiar side of things and how you use these guys as actual familiars. So starting off, we are going to need another tablet. This is the tablet of binding, and this is made with a vexing archwood log, 3 source gems, an ender pearl, and a blank parchment. A blank parchment is simply just a piece of paper surrounded by mage bloom fiber, which we grow from mage bloom seeds, which we have covered before. Now, we have got obviously the different types of familiars here. The Golem, the Amethyst Golem, currently isn't a familiar, and in 1.19 the Bookwyrm familiar is actually in the game, but without actually getting the Bookwyrm charm, you won't be able to get it without creative, but I'll still show you how it's made. First thing we're going to cover is obviously the Starbuncle charm. We'll go in this exact same order. So all we need to first get is a Starbuncle. In order to get the Starbuncle, we just simply have to right click the charm on the ground and he will spawn. We then take our tablet of binding, put that on another ritual blazer and start it. And then after a couple of seconds, this guy will turn into a familiar. You then have to simply right click in the air. As you can see, I already own this familiar, but it will use up the familiar. And then inside of your book, your spell book, when you go into the familiars tab, you'll see a brand new icon, which is the Starbuncle. As you can see, I have already unlocked every single type, but all you have to do is simply left click on one of these fellas over here and it will spawn into the world. As you can see, I'm a little bit speedier now. This will give you a ×2 speed effect or a +2 speed effect just naturally whenever you have this familiar, and of course this familiar will follow you around. As well as that, there's a little bonus with the Starbuncle. If I give him a golden nugget, it will give me this other thing here called Skyring, and underneath the world I can now start to see gold underneath in all these different places. They're all different colors, which is a little bit confusing, but most of these are gold. However, I have managed to find lead using this as well, so I'm not quite 100% sure how it works, but you should just be able to see gold in the world now with the Starbuncle. In order to get rid of this guy, you're going to just have to use the Dispel on him and he will disappear, of course. And you will keep your little perks on the side until it obviously runs out. Next, we have the Whirlisprig. In order to spawn the Whirlisprig, we need to give him a home. Now, the way to get a home is just right click with the charm on any type of flower and it will spawn in the Whirlisprig. The exact same way, we take our ritual brazier and give it the tablet of binding, and then we just right click to start it, and then this guy will turn into the familiar, and again you right click it in the air and it will unlock that familiar for you. The spawning is the exact same way. Now this guy is going to reduce the cost of any earth type spell glyphs by half, so it will cost less mana, as well as that whenever you're eating food it will give you some bonus saturation. Next is the Drygmy. In order to spawn the Drygmy, you have to right click the charm on a piece of mossy cobblestone. The exact same thing applies, tablet of binding, yada yada yada. Once he spawns, we activate it, and this will give ourselves the Drygmy familiar glyph. This is going to be activated the exact same way as anything else, and this increases the damage of any spell type or earth spell types by 2, as well as that when you are just killing any mobs, there is a chance of getting increased mob drops. Following this, we have the Wixie. The Wixie is activated by right clicking the charm on a cauldron, and you've probably guessed it, we need a tablet of binding on a brazier. Once he's spawned, we'll activate this and it will turn into the Wixie familiar, and you'll activate this once again through the book. What the Wixie will do will extend the time of any potion that you have drunk, as well as that if you give the Wixie a certain ingredient, it will give you a tier 1 effect. So if you gave it a piece of sugar, it will give you a tier 1 level of speed. Simple as that. As well as that, when you are in combat, the Wixie will give harmful potion effects to any mobs that you are in combat with. Now the last one is the Bookwyrm. As I said, this has been currently disabled in 1.19, but how you would spawn it is by right clicking the charm on a lectern. Now I'm going to shift right click it here to see that it spawns in. It'll give it its own little decoration as well if you're in 1.16, and then the exact same way applies. So you still can get the familiar, but obviously only if you are using creative mode. You'll get the Bookwyrm here, and when you do spawn the Bookwyrm, it will decrease the mana cost of all your spells, as well as that it will increase the damage of all your spells by 1. Now, some things about the familiars: although you can spawn them and they'll give you obviously their different abilities, you cannot have more than one at once, as you can see here. However, let's test this here. If we have multiple books open, are we going to get multiple types? No, we're not. It is only one familiar per person at a time, unfortunately. Something else is when you are spawning in these familiars, you will get something in survival mode called familiar sickness. This is going to be a small cooldown that will stop you from spawning in the next familiar until that cooldown is obviously ran out. So now how about we go how these work in automation. We've covered everything familiar now, so that's probably why most of you are here, but let's go over the actual automation side of things. Starting off with the Starbuncle. Now we covered the Starbuncle in the first 2 episodes plenty over, but we haven't covered absolutely everything. For the Starbuncle, you are going to need a variety of items. Well, you're not going to need them, but they're very useful. And for all of these different charmed familiars, you are going to probably need the Dominion Wand. So I recommend you make that first. It's simply an enchanting apparatus like so. Now the Starbuncle is going to be your way of transporting items from point A to point B. We just simply right click him on the 4 and it will say storing items in location 0 and taking items from locations 0. In order to set whatever you want, you're going to need the Dominion Wand. If you right click on him, it says store entities. From this point on, you can pick any chest or item inventory holding device in order for it to store in that location. So we're just going to hold shift and right click over here. The Starbuncle is now going to store items in this location as you see. If you want to then start having it take items, all you have to do is shift right click on a position. It will say position set, and then you right click on your Starbuncle and it will now say it's taking from that location. So how about we just inside of here, let's just give it a load of dirt or load of stone, as you can see here, and one at a time it's going to start taking the whole thing. Now the good thing is that the Starbuncle is actually capable of taking full stacks at the same time. So if we got ourselves another stack of stuff over here, it's going to start doing it very, very quickly. It takes a couple of seconds to tick upwards, but it will obviously choose the right location. Now, the cool thing about the Starbuncle as well is that it can take from multiple locations and store in multiple locations at the same time. So if I hold shift on this guy, it actually clears all the tasks. That allows me to start resetting again. If I do store, we want to store over here, and then we right click again and we want to store over here, and then we want to take this location and put this on you. He is now going to take whatever location, probably the shortest route first, and start taking all your items, as you can see here. So over there, it's taking the shortest route and it's going over to there now. So there is a way, I believe, of round robining him, but I'm not too sure. Looking into it, it doesn't look like there's a way of round robining him, unfortunately. So let's restart this guy once again. So we know that we've got pretty much all of our blocks in just this one location, so how about we do this here? Now something else that is cool about this little guy here is that you are able to determine a given path that it wants to take using a certain type of block. In this case, if I right click on it with a piece of cobblestone, it's going to prefer taking paths with cobblestone. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be taking a perfect path of cobblestone, as it will always choose the shortest route and it will pick the closest location that it wants to go in first. So if I say we want to store items in this chest and in this chest and take from this chest over here, what it's going to do is it's going to pick one of these two, whichever is closer. However, it's going to prefer the path as long as it's on the way. So as you can see here, it's always taking the cobblestone route and then switching to the grassy block. Now by default, the Starbuncle is always going to want to choose grass blocks over any other types of blocks. Now if I were to move this over here, you can see that it's not going to start storing it in this one, as it's still obviously not the closest one. But once this is filled with all these other different types of blocks, it will obviously change direction, but it will actually keep to the path as you see here. It's not going to start cutting corners. And as you can see here, even after I've emptied this one, it's still taking the shortest route first, regardless of what the blocks are. Now as you can see here, we've got our little Starbuncle. He has completely finished moving blocks between our different inventories. Now what you can do is actually set them to a mage boom bed. What we do is simply do that by storing items and then right clicking on a bed, and it will say bed set. Then after it's finished its tasks, it will go and reset itself over on this bed. So we'll give it a few seconds now that it's all set. We'll have it finish its task, and then hopefully it should go to bed. Now I've tried testing with this fella a little while, but for whatever reason he is not going back. But as it does say inside the book, if I go back to the familiars, the Starbuncle may be bound to a mage boom bed using the Dominion Wand and will be rested in the bed when there are no other tasks for it to be done. Useful for keeping them out of the way or returning them to a spot where items are dropped. Because as we know, the Starbuncle as well, even if items are just dropped on the ground, they will go and pick them up and then put them in their designated areas once it is detected that there's something nearby, as you can see here. He's put it away, and then we can use this as a reset point. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to be working. But in order to make the Mage Bloom bed, you have to make the orange one first, which is just Mage Bloom fibers and a feather. And then from that as well, you can dye it to different colors as well using different sorts of dyes. Now, the last things you can do with a Starbuncle is that you can set it to filter different types of items. Now, the filters can be done in two different ways, either by putting item frames on your chests or your inventory blocks, or giving it a specific scroll. There are three different types of scrolls as you see here, and each should do different things. The allow scroll is essentially going to be your whitelist, and it's going to allow you to obviously use those specific items that you have set on it. The deny scroll is going to be more of a blacklist type. This is going to prevent the carbuncle from putting any items into that chest or item or from picking it up. The last one is going to be the mimic scroll. The mimic scroll is going to make the carbuncle, or starbuncle rather, only put items inside the chest that are already in there. It's going to mimic what is already inside, so you won't have anything extra. In order to make each of these, you're first going to need a piece of parchment, as you can see here, and they're all going to need different things. For allow, it's simply going to be a chest and a piece of parchment. For deny, it's going to be a piece of cobblestone and a piece of parchment. And for mimic, it's the allow and another chest. To make the parchment, you are just simply going to need Mage Bloom fiber and a piece of paper. So now how about we show this Starbuncle what we want. We're going to use this chest as our regular chest here. So let's clear everything else first. So let's show off how you actually end up whitelisting some items. Now the whitelist can be done, as I say, in two different ways. The first one we're going to show is with the item frame. Now you can only have one item frame on it at a time, and this is going to give you your different blocks. So we have 4 different blocks here. One is going to be for stone, the other one is going to be for andesite. You place all 4 of these inside. It's going to take a couple of seconds where it's going to pick what it wants. It's going to put the stone in there first, then it's going to do the diorite, and it's going to put them in either side, but obviously it doesn't have a place for the last 2, so it isn't placing them anywhere. The next way is going to be the scrolls. Now the scrolls can be done using item frames, and of course this guy's going to place the other ones first, so let's take those blocks all together and we can go over to the scribes table to set these. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to have the allow scroll. We're going to place this on the table, and then from that we can give it diorite. Sorry, we can shift right click to add diorite, andesite rather. Then we're going to shift right click again to give it stone. So this now has stone and andesite. Now it says on it when you hover over it. Now you can do 2 ways of applying this. The first way is by putting that scroll into an item frame. That means that when we place these blocks inside of here, what it's going to do is it's going to pick up what it wants. Give it a few seconds. There you go. It's going to put the stone, and then it should put the andesite, or it's going to put the deep slate over here. Then the diorite. And then it's going to put the andesite over here. So allow scroll has worked great. Now the other way to do this is by giving the Starbuncle the scroll itself. Now when let's take that out of there. If we give it the scroll, it's now going to only pick up the items that we've set it. So if we put all 4 of these blocks in here, it's going to only take out the andesite and the stone. It's not going to take out anything else because it's been whitelisted to only take out those items you can see here. So you can either whitelist your inputs or whitelist the Starbuncle itself. Now, if you want to reset this guy, you are going to need to obviously take things out of the allowed scroll. So you have to remember what's inside. If we hold shift right click with the block in our hand, as you can see, it has removed it now from that allow list. So if we give this allow list back to this guy, it is going to now filter it, but obviously it's going to be filtered to nothing. So there is a way of resetting it. You can just shift right click on it again and it will reset the allow thing, but those are the 2 ways you can do it. Next we'll do the deny. The deny is going to be done the exact same way. So if we deny andesite and we deny it stone there, we can again place this onto our lovely little whitelist Magicka frame there. We'll place it down and it will not put the diorite inside of here, but it can actually still place everything in this one. It could choose to place absolutely everything here, but as you can see, it has chosen to put it over here, as this one's the one that's a little bit closer, so it's using this chest as a bit of a priority. As you can see, it's placed it in the right places. Once again, you can deny this fella directly, which means that it will pick up everything except from these 2 items that we have set. As you can see here. Now the last one we have is Mimic. So Mimic we can place on here by default. If we put ourselves some deep slate into here, and then we'll place the rest, or we'll just place everything inside of here. what will happen is it will just simply place the deep slate in this one and nothing else, as because the deep slate is what is already inside of here, as you can see. But anyway, that's all the things that the Starbuncle can do. The very last thing which we showed off in episode 1 is that the Starbuncle can automatically harvest source berries. That's the only other thing that it can do itself. Moving on, next we have the Whirlisprig. As we said, the Whirlisprig has a home by giving it any type of plant. In this case, we're going to use the rose. We're going to right click on there, it's going to spawn in and then turn into the Whirlisprig. The Whirlisprig's basic function is it is going to automatically produce drops out of any given plant crops or trees that are nearby. Now it's going to use a little bit of source in order for this to actually work. Now it's only going to create these different types of blocks based on where its home is. As you can see here, it's starting to already take some things. It generates just grass every now and then. Now as you can see, when I hover over it, it has a mood. Its mood is currently very unhappy. Now its home is how you make it happy. Its home is going to be 10 blocks out from where the Whirlisprig blossom is. Now the higher the more variety of crops you have and the more crops you have nearby, it's going to make our Whirlisprig a little bit more happy. So we've got 10 blocks around, that could be absolutely anything, and this person is making a lot of grass blocks, as you can see here. So let's place down a couple of different items. Now I've placed down quite a few different things here very diversely within its 10 block radius. Now just to note, even though I've just placed it all down, this person says that they are still very unhappy. It can take several minutes for it to actually update. There you go, it's just updated there as I was looking at him. He is now content. He is now content with this area. However, we could increase this more by adding more variety and more things. If you added all more archery trees, you'll get even happier. Now, as you can see, it is starting to make items come in and around this area. However, it's only going to really start generating items once we have a chest nearby. If I could actually type. So let's place down a chest, place that here. Now the Whirlisprig should start actually dropping items into the world. However, they will not go directly into the chest, I don't think. I could be completely wrong. I believe they just get dropped onto the ground, as you see here. Oh, there. Never mind. It's doing something. It's doing something in the ocean over here. Now something you can do is increase its mood again by right clicking here. The Whirlisprig seems content but could be better. There is some diversity but could be better. It wants more diverse things. As you can see, it's going to tell you a little bit more about what it wants. Oh, there we go. Oh, never mind. I thought it just made something. Another way of being able to tell what this Whirlisprig is actually going to like in its home is that you can hold the item in your hand and right click on it and actually tell you the Whirlisprig would be excited to have this in their home, as well as things like mushrooms. But as you can see, when it has too much, if I place this grass block, this Whirlisprig likes this item, but it has enough of it already. So let's just keep placing more and more of it until it's happy with what it wants. There we go. I've placed down many more things now, and this fella is a little bit happy. It's so happy it started creating some grass down in the area as if it was a bone meal effect. As you can see, it's starting to place loads of things over here. And now that he is a little bit more happy as well, we have started getting some different items inside of here. We've had some random green tea leaves, a poppy, some wheat, some wood, and some flashing archwood logs. So it does take a lot of time, but we will get a lot of good stuff from this fella here. And as I say, this uses a little bit of source per time that it wants to make some ingredients, and it's completely random. Now I believe we are able to actually get multiple Whirlisprigs at the same home, which is pretty cool as well. Next we have the Drygmy Charm. The Drygmy Charm is going to be pretty much the exact same as the Whirlisprig, except its home is going to be a piece of mossy cobblestone. So all we have to do is right click the charm, it will eventually generate into its own little house. Like the Whirlisprig as well, you'll also be able to have multiple different Drygmies in the same area. So let's place down a load here. Now the difference between the Drygmy and the Whirlisprig is that the Drygmy does generate items through entities. Now, however, it does work the exact same way as these guys need to be happy in order to get more experience and more basically drops being enabled, and it has an internal progress bar, so eventually we should start getting sheep drops here. Now just like the Whirlisprig, you need to make its home a little bit nicer. Within 10 blocks of your little Drygmy henge here is what the Drygmies consider their home, and just like the Whirlisprig, we can give them different items to see whether they are interested in them. Now the other thing about the Drygmies is their happiness is based similar to the Whirlisprig. They are going to need more entities around though, however, instead of harvestable items in order to be more happy. So since they only have sheep here, they're only a little bit happy basically. And also you can say where you want to store the items. We want to store them in here, of course. Now I've added a few more animals in here, and as we have more animals and a few Drygmies, we are getting a few different drops now. We're getting some wool, we're getting some raw mutton of course, some beefs come in, and we're even getting some fish related items since we're right next to the sea. That's also more entities that it is considering. Now sometimes you may not want to have endless amounts of animals here, because to be honest you can also have mobs in here as well. You could have zombies and creepers and such, and it will start making from them. There's something else you can use, and that is called a containment jar. The containment jar is a way of actually storing items inside of your little jars here, or it's a way of storing mobs inside of jar without being actually around. For this you're going to need a containment ritual here using a ritual brazier, but all we need to do is, once we have it, is the ritual jar itself, or a containment jar. Now if we did something like this, if we had ourselves some containment jars down here, place this down, put a tablet on here, and then right click, eventually one of these items is going to go into these jars. In fact, as you can see here, some Drygmies went inside of it. Now each one of these can be picked up, and then you can just place it down into the world or around here, and these guys will consider it basically some entities. Now obviously, so you don't have Drygmies, you probably want to do these a little bit of ways away, but it's a cool way of doing it. Next up we have the Wixie. For this we're going to need the Wixie charm of course, and a cauldron, and as well as that you may also want another item called the potion jar. This was slightly covered in the previous episode. This is using the abjuration essence and a source jar, and this is a way of automating potions basically. Besides that you will need maybe some item pedestals as well, arcane pedestals. So I'm going to show off automation using potions first. Inside here we have got our basic setup. First we can get our Wixie and place it down just like so on our cauldron, and eventually a Wixie will spawn. Now every time a Wixie wants to actually start crafting something, it's going to use a little bit of source, so you will need some source. Similar to the Drygmy and the Whirligig, they need some source to actually activate. Now we want to make a potion here. Luckily with the Wixie, it can automatically actually produce water itself. You don't need to have what I had over here on the previous episode, an urn of endless water. You don't actually need that, and an urn of endless water is actually from Ars Elemental, not from Ars Nouveau. That is my mistake. But anyway, we want to obviously start making some potions. So first we're going to need an awkward potion. For this we're going to need some items. As you can see, we have nothing in the chest. For an awkward potion, we're first going to need some nether wart, of course, if I could spell it. Just like so. So let's just get a handful of nether wart into here. Next, we're going to take our little Wixie here. We want to say store entity, and we want to store it inside of this one. In fact, we don't want to lock it, so we want that to be in there. We want that position set on this guy. So first we want to actually set the recipe. For this, we're going to need to have one of these first. So if we get ourselves an awkward potion here, place this just like this, and we should give the potion to the pot itself, not the Wixie. As you can see, it starts bringing in any items naturally from over here. Now, unfortunately, it's actually started putting in this one, so I guess there's no easy way of setting this. But as you can see, it's now starting to make awkward potions. So from an awkward potion, how about we make a strength potion? For this, we're going to need some blaze powder. So let's get some blaze powder in here next. Just like so. And we want to obviously get a strength potion. Potion of strength. Easy peasy. And we should be able to set this on there as well. Recipe set, as you can see here. It should make the last one, but what it's actually going to do is I don't believe it's going to switch between the two. There you go. It's taking some awkward potion out of here now, putting some blaze powder in, and then it's going to be putting that, once it's mixed, into a brand new jar, which it has chosen this one. So I don't think you can actually have it change between the two. I believe it's one recipe per Wixie. So if you want to do a full chain, you would have to have 3 Wixies here, just like I do over here. But the exact same principles apply when, say, we are crafting a regular item. Now, as well as making potions, as you can see here, the Wixie can also start auto-crafting any size of item. So let's go with something basic for now, and we'll just say a crafting table. For this, you're obviously going to have the crafting table here, and then right-click it in here, and it will say crafting table, as you can see there. For that, obviously, we're going to need some planks. So let's just get ourselves the basic oak planks, as you can see here. We'll put this inside our chest over here, and we'll just place a load in, and automatically our Wixie is going to start taking these items and then crafting it up. It was a bit slow. It will take one at a time. Now, you can chain this with multiple Wixies, of course. If you wanted to, say, make a load of torches, you could say one make logs into planks, then one make planks into sticks, and then one takes coal and then into sticks, into torches. As you can see here, it doesn't actually put the crafted item inside of a chest. This is where you are probably going to need a Starbuncle with you as well, because the Starbuncle is going to be able to take all the items that it drops on the ground and put it into specific chests, and that is going to be your way of sort of whitelisting items. Now, I believe you can tell your Wixie certain things as well. I believe you can give it an allow list and stuff like this. If we try it on like you, recipe set, no, that's telling you how to make it. That's wrong. Maybe not. Maybe you can't set this person to do any sorts of whitelist. But anyway, it only takes the items that it needs from the recipe you set it anyway. Now, even though I can right click on the quadrant, it says no recipe found, or clearly it does have a recipe found. But now to show some other things. As we can show that we can, obviously we can lock and unlock these here. What this does, how do I do it? There you go, locked and unlocked. This is going to basically make the Wixie only now put that type of potion inside of here. Once it's full, it would obviously start placing it in this other one. So maybe just to set these potion jars into a bit of a whitelist, you want to put one bottle in first. And apparently I can just do that infinitely. I am in creative mode after all. The second thing is where I come into pedestals. The pedestal is the way of actually having this Wixie make multiple things at once instead. So let's do the same way that I just said we want to have, say, torches. So for torches, we want this. For we're obviously going to need sticks as well. So let's do it like this. And then we're obviously going to need some coal. Let's make some coal just like so. So this is now bringing these two items in. As you can see here, it's going to be currently crafting a stick and it drops it on the ground. However, it obviously cannot do any more. This would need to be picked up and placed back inside, but eventually it should start crafting other things as well. There you go, we've got some sticks there. Now it's doing torches. Even though the Wixie is managing to craft multiple things at once, it's going to do it in a round robin state. So obviously it's choosing what it wants to make first. It needs to make a stick, and then it does the torch, then it does the stick, then it does the torch. The other thing as well, if you ever want to stop the Wixie from crafting, what you can do is just give either the pot itself, that will stop the original craft from crafting anything, or if you just power one of these pedestals with the redstone signal, it will stop doing that one craft. So if I powered up this torch pedestal, it would just continuously make sticks. However, if I took off the redstone, it would start doing a round robin again. And lastly, we have the Amethyst Golem. The Amethyst Golem is just going to simply right click on the floor and we have our Amethyst Golem. First, we're going to have to actually set him a home. If we right click on him and then right click on this block over here, as you can see, it's now stored that home inside of this fella. And what the Amethyst Golem is able to do is, as you can see here, it's actually going to start breaking and collecting all of these different clusters. As well as that, it's going to turn any amethyst blocks into budding amethyst as well. As well as that, it's also going to speed up the tick rate and growth speed of all of these budding amethysts. But as you can see, it's completely broken, all of it, but it's not actually gathering anything. And that's because you would need its home to be a inventory storing place. Now, there may be two ways to do this. One, if we place this down here, is it just going to start working? No, it's not. So instead, we're going to have to set its home as this box over here. What it should do now is actually start picking up any items that it breaks. But first, it might have to... Oh, there you go. It's just picked them all up instantly just like that and placed it all inside. I guess it just needed to update. There you go. But now this fella is going to be able to do anything he wants. Obviously, the more you place down here, you're going to have to set each one to have its own home. But it's going to speed up all of its... it's going to speed up the tick rates. And as you can see, turn all of its budding amethyst... Or turn all the budding amethysts and blocks of amethyst into bloody amethysts. One day I'll speak everything correctly. Now there is the Bookwyrm charm, but unfortunately the Bookwyrm doesn't actually do anything in 1.19.2. What you would usually do, however, I will explain it if you're playing in older versions, is you would place a lectern down and then simply right click on the lectern and it will turn into the Bookwyrm's place. Now I'm able to shift click this person into the world, as you can see here, and this would be our Bookwyrm. From this, you would be able to make a spell parchment. If we type in spell here, there you go, parchment here. This is going to be our spell parchment. Now, the spell parchment is going to be our way of basically setting any types of spells that we want onto it. For this, you are going to need a scribe's table. As you can see here, we'll place this down like that. And then apparently we can put a scribe's table on the scribe's table. There we go. Place our piece of parchment down, and then we want to craft a spell from inside of our book. So say here that we wanted to do a sort of bone meal effect spell. Do we have that available to us right now? Okay, we don't have grow, but we do have harvest. So what we can do here is we can say let's go for touch and harvest, and then we'll just have this as harvest, as you can see here. Once we do that, we'll click create, and then we can hold shift and right click on the spell to have this spell be set on the parchment to essentially be harvest. What we can then do is give that to the bookworm. It would say activated or whatever in the chat, and it will start harvesting in a specific area. With the Dominion wand, you will be able to set a designated area. You can set it from as low as being a 3x3 square, or you could do, I think, 5x5 and 9x9, and I think all the way up to 17x17 if I remember correctly. So you can make this guy do a really wide area. Now, just like every other guy, you are going to need to have a source jar next to him and or above him or nearby, and that is where he's going to basically make his spells from. So you could do this as a simple early game sort of farm as well. You may need 2 of this fella, so you could set one to be bone mealing, say, all of your wheat, and then you could have another one be using a different spell to harvest all of your crops. Then you get a carbuncle to put them all inside of a chest, and then you could get that a Wixie to start making you some well, not sweet berries, mana. There you go, mana rolls, mana berry rolls. So you could make something really cool and automated. However, it looks like in this version you need to have some milk too. But guys, even though this was a little bit of a long one today, that is everything when it comes to familiars, both in the actual familiar form of giving you some buffs, as well as how to automate some things inside of Ars Nouveau. If this video did help you out in any way, shape or form, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me out. And ring the bell button to stay notified when these videos go live. We've still got plenty more to cover inside of Ars Nouveau, and next time I think we're going to delve a little bit more into tier 2 spells. So let's learn how we actually upgrade our spell book. But until next time guys, take care.